Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. It is a blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, sign of black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I want to start off by sending out a warning to this country bumpkin that left two messages, the same message, but under two different, well, left the same comment, but under two different videos of mine, trying to tell my own subscribers to get rid of my channel. Number one, I'm not a colorist. I'm an ist. That means I got a problem with everybody, period. I got a problem with stupid father muckers. I can't afford to be worried about what their melanin count is in reality. If I'm a colorist at all, I'm colorist against white society. And that's not colorism, because I don't have a problem with Eastern Europeans that never did nothing to us. Bosnians ain't the problem. Albanians ain't our problem. I got a problem with Western Europeans that even Eastern Europeans got sick of. And for what reason? I got a problem with anybody that sides with white folk against black folk, period. I got a problem with other groups of people that might actually be black, but they don't know it because they ain't black. I got issues with them too. And I don't care what they didn't know before they made the decision. I'm like, no, you sided with the oppressor against us. If you even think that white people are more normal than we are, screw you. You're the enemy. You may not be violent, so I'm not violent, but get the hell out of my face. I live in a country where I refuse to socialize with the people here unless they're black because of their attitude towards black people, not because of their melanin count. We have the same melanin count on average. We ain't that far apart. My issue with them is what they think of race and color, not the color or the race to which they were born. So don't get up here and start talking about I'm a colorist, so everybody try to get my channel closed down. Because there's somebody else that's about to sue your behind if you continue this. It ain't me, and I can't call them off. So I'm letting you know right now, keep it up. You're going to have to pay some money for slander. Because if they do decide to sue, I'm going to help them with the attorney fees starting next September. Do not play. You don't have to agree, that's fine. But I'm not a colorist. I'm not the enemy. And then let me take that to the next point. Most light-skinned black folk ain't the enemy, to be honest. We're just not. I've heard all kinds of stuff. I'm going to call it what it is, actually. Let's take Shaun King, for instance. Shaun King went to a historically black college or university. Because when I took classes at that same one, I saw him. I didn't know him. We never met, but I saw him. I'm sure he saw me before, but I don't think he'd remember me anymore. He was actually told that he was half black growing up. He didn't lie. The man didn't know anything else. But of course, he's been pushed out the race, so to speak. And it turns out that he may actually not have black blood, but he didn't know this coming up. So when he was jumped and beat up in high school, it was actually an act of racial violence. It just turns out that at this point, he thought that he had a black father. So whatever the case was, the first thing that people ever got on him about was actually his shade. We think he's a fraud. Chances are he confronted his mom and asked her what was going on, and that's when he found this out. After he was being called a fraud, like what the hell they mean? How would they tell me my origins like that? So at the end of the day, we're not the ones that are the enemy. We're not trying to divide the race. And most of our more abundantly melanated relatives are not trying to divide the race or expel us from the racial category. What's actually happening, what's going on in here for real, is that you got a vocal minority that are tired of white supremacy and all of its vestiges, and they want white privilege, and that's understandable. But the problem is that they're going to react the opposite way, in the opposite direction, and they're going to go against anything that makes them feel uncomfortable. This vocal minority hates the vestiges of white supremacy so much that they overestimate light-skin privilege. See, light-skin privilege, if it exists at all, is no more than a few tokens and trinkets, as I mentioned before, a few funky promotions at funky jobs, you know, little small 15-cent raises and things like that. That's the extent, and the whole point of it is to divide us. And the thing is that many of us have actually refused to take something like that, most of us. The ones of us that would take something like that, we'd rather just go ahead and pass if we can. And I don't even say we because I wouldn't. When they pass, they can't even identify themselves to other light-skinned black folk as black because we would turn them in. We would out them. We're not going to keep that secret. Wait a minute, hold up. So you passing as white? And that's if we don't detect them before they say anything. So don't get it twisted. But see, most of our abundantly melanated relatives ain't really that problem. They're not a part of that problem. It's a few of them that are vocal. Now, the vocal minority of us that were outright biased against more abundantly melanated Africans, they're pretty much dead off because that's passé. They're old, they're senile, or they're dead already. That being said, when I hear another YouTuber talk about the light-skinned community as a separate community, I have listened to him and I've heard him say that it's not really about trying to just be separate for the sake of separating the race, but because they're being pushed out. This is what he hears. This is a problem. Rashida Strober is right that darkism exists. It usually hits you when you're young the most, and it hits you when you're a girl more so than when you're a boy. So I understand why she went through what she went through. And this is her turn. I don't know whether to call it lightism or paleism, which is the reaction to that, the reaction that goes against you if you're black but you're very pale skinned. I don't know. Some people say don't call it colorism. Okay, fine. Whatever that reaction is named is a hell of a lot less important than the fact that pendulum does swing both ways in our community. And most of us really don't hate anybody else based on something like that. That's the funny thing. But we're all affected by a dumbass minority that does have this hatred. That's the truth of the matter. So, anyway, since this has been said, I'm gonna go on to the next issue, which is how we black folks really do need to discriminate, and then I'm gonna be done with it. We black folks need to discriminate based on something else. It ain't shade, and it's not money, it's not income. It's not even formal educational level. It's not the degrees you got on your wall. We need to discriminate by just regular intelligence. That's it. Some niggas are dangerous. Some niggas bring conflict with them everywhere they go because they will do or say things that are unfair to others and refuse to deal with any consequences for it. An example, the first one to say that SYSBM and Passport Gang were a bunch of pedophiles. Y'all know who I'm talking about, that nigga. You got to discriminate against someone like that because he'll sit up there and try to really calmly just hit your buttons, but he's blaming you for something you didn't do. And when you're surprised and you raise your voice and you say, wait a minute, I never did anything like that, and I don't know anybody that's doing something like that. Well, you know, they doing it, but they just probably ain't told you about it. I mean, frankly, I think that you know something, and I think you just ain't want to say nothing because you probably got skeletons in your own closet. He's one of them niggas. And then when you go off on him, like Edward Anderson rightly did, young man, elders in the building, when we gonna see you with a woman? You know, that's stupid stuff. That's a dumb nigga. We need to discriminate against people like that, and I got just the way to do it. He's just one example. He's not the only one. The ones who listen to King Sigma and Edward Anderson and then try to, instead of tear down their points, want or disprove their points, they want to sit up and say, man, look how they sound, and when you gonna see them with a woman? Like they supposed to put their private life on public blast like that. These niggas discriminate against them, and I got just the way to do it. Marcus Garvey was right. Repatriate. Now, I didn't say we all go back to the same place, But believe you me, the ones of us with brains are not too many anyway. If those of us with brains and who can leave fit the guck out and go to different parts of the globe, but tropics, I got a reason for saying it, going to the tropics, then what would happen is this. We would leave behind, unfortunately, we'd have to leave behind some deserving people that just couldn't go. But we would also leave behind the dumb niggas that should not go. Now, why would I, a pro-black Pan-Africanist, for real, sit up and tell you to leave behind a bunch of people that say that they're pro-black and be one? And I call them the N-word, niggas. Why would I call one of them top porch monkeys and a bunch of other racial epithets? It's real simple. They look at the white man's television and they see the negative stereotypes of us on TV and they believe it themselves, even though they call themselves B1 or black first or pro-black. Real pro-black people do not accept the enemy stereotypes of them as their own identity. Real people, really pro anyone, do not fashion that identity for themselves based on their enemy stereotypes. Really pro-Palestinian people do not fashion their identity as a mindless terrorist. That's the Israeli stereotype of the Palestinian. They're not going to take that and say, I'm going to become a mindless terrorist at this point. That's not what a lot of them do. They don't function like that. Just to give an example. And so now that that is being said, now that that's understood, we should repatriate and leave behind the dumb niggas. When the numbers of us still in the U.S. dwindle, the white supremacists and the far right are going to be more emboldened against the ones that are left behind, especially if the ones that are left behind are that damn stupid. One or two things is going to happen. Either they're going to become real docile real quick because they see these bold white folks vastly outnumbering them now and they don't have us to hide behind anymore. Or they're going to stay them dumb, loud, boldly stupid ass niggas and just further irritate the white supremacists with these guns and get themselves wiped out. Now, they're not going to wipe out the Ku Klux Klan for us, but the Ku Klux Klan may wipe them niggas out for us. The quality of us is more important at this point than the quantity. And I don't like having to sit up here and say, let's sacrifice the worst of us to our enemies. I don't like having to say something like that. Believe you me. The problem is they're not giving us a choice. They don't give us an opportunity. And some of them are fake woke. And I'm sorry, but if you were sitting up here saying one thing, one conclusion, I'm about to prove it to you, I'm about to prove it to you, and you cutting everybody else off, and then you bring up evidence that supports another conclusion, but not your conclusion, you one of them fake woke dumb niggas. That's one of them. If you halfway read something and then you want to go and tell the author something, or you halfway listen to something and then you want to go and correct the content creator before you heard everything, and my videos ain't even that long, like talking about, you one of them dumb niggas. It's one thing when you can't address everything that was said on a 4-hour live stream, but what about when you can't address something that was said on a 10 or 20-minute video? And you go putting words in someone's mouth that they didn't say within those 10 to 20 minutes. Dumb nigga, you need to be left behind. Maybe the Ku Klux Klans can knock some sense into you. I don't know, maybe you'll actually fight back against them and y'all can wipe each other out. But that's really what we're going to have to discriminate based on: intelligence. Not degrees, not money for that matter. But just intelligence. Just plain old-fashioned intelligence. And without treachery, for that matter. And the next one, I'm going to address this false accusation that we're a bunch of pedos. That's coming up. In the meantime, I hope that everything I've said is not true one day. Not true anymore, and until then, I hope that what I've said helps you. And I mean it when I say to you, thanks for listening, assalamu alaikum, and black male power just because they don't like it.